this computer. All right, perfect. So we are live and we are recording. So I want to thank everyone for signing in to our nutrition Zoom talk. As you know, nutrition is a very, very asked about topic, especially working with clients, people of fitness, just pretty much in your every day-to-day talks, you'll see it a lot. So what I wanted to do is, yeah, please everybody put your mics on mute too, so we don't get any feedback. This is going to be interactive, so I will ask for guys to speak out or maybe even just hit the chat, but I do want to kind of have some open dialogue as we do this. But I wanted to get a chat going with my good friends Idalise and Sharif. I know nutrition, I know the basics of nutrition, but these two that I invited on this chat know a lot more than me. And if you know me, I like to hang around people who are smarter than me. So this is why everybody is here right now. We're working as a team to help you guys out. So we're going to talk about a lot of different topics today. One of the things we're going to speak about is macros, like what actually is a macro, what does it mean? We're going to break down the different macros, carbs, fats, and proteins as you know them, but I want them to go a little more in depth and really break down what it does to the body, what it means, and why they are necessary. A lot of things that you hear, like carbs are bad for you. You'll even hear about like sugar, how that can be bad for you, sodium. Even though those are macros, these are still minerals that we get in the body. And I want them to break down the science of the importance of how all of this works, whether you're just trying to go through your every day-to-day life, whether you're an athlete, whether you're just trying to balance the gym a couple times a week, you know, in your routines. So we're going to also speak about overeating and undereating, how that affects the body. We're going to speak on mental health and how that plays a part in your dieting. I got a big list here. We're going to also speak about how different health conditions will pretty much go with your eating style. You know, so if someone has, let's say, kidney disease, how does someone eat around that? If someone has a wheat allergy, Idalise has IBS, she's going to talk about her experiences with that. There's a few people in here with high blood pressure and diabetes. So we're going to address all of these conditions throughout this talk here. And this is going to be interactive, so I will ask certain people to speak. I want to get some for, oh, you got some interesting stuff going there, Eric. We're gonna get different perspectives just to kind of see where people's heads is with certain topics. And we're gonna try to make some sense out of all this. So I'm going to start off with a question that I want everyone to answer. Not all at once, please. I want to know, what does health mean to you? So anybody who would like to jump in and explain what health means to them, take it away. Don't jump all at once.
Thinking. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna start calling people. Miss Deborah. Yeah, we need your audio. So I even talked about this a little bit briefly with you during our Zoom talk. What do you consider health to you?
Health or good health?
All of it. Just speak about it.
Well, for me, I think it's being in a place where I'm comfortable and doing those things on a daily basis that will help me live I don't want to say easy life, but a better life. And those things that will help prolong my life. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is to me, because I think it's different for everybody.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so doing what I need to do to really sustain myself and live a better life.
Good. All right, let's go, Gil.
Yep, I'll take my turn. Yeah, health has been something that's become really important to me over the past 5 to 10 years. I've gone through many different losses in my life. And I also, when I was first diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I was shocked to find out that I pretty much caused it by my eating habits. And that really put me in fear, because at that time I had 2 small kids, and one of my fears has always been, like, what would happen to my family if I can't work or I get sick, and that could affect the success of my family. So it really shocked me into doing things better. And I was able to, at that time I was about 300 pounds and working a very stressful job. So I was able to listen to my nutritionist and my doctors, and I was able to get down to about 215 and get off my meds, and it was really good. But then one of the things I didn't do was work on the fears that made me become an emotional eater. So I've been working on that. So now that I'm in a new phase in my life, and I'm starting many things in my life over, health is one of the top things that I'm focusing on. And right now my type 2 diabetes has flared up again, but I'm making progress. Last year, my A1C was 11, and now it's at 7. So I've been making progress and losing weight. And so it's really important to me for my quality of life and the things that I want to do in my next phase of my life. I don't want health to stop me from enjoying my life.
Mm.
Thank you for
I just want to commend you on all the hard work that you clearly put in. Knowing about diabetes myself, being a type 1 diabetic, I understand the struggle all too well, especially when it comes to lowering that A1C, how frustrating that can be. So I really want to commend you on all of that hard work you put in. Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Thanks.
Eric, let's go with you, sir.
For me, health, it kind of just means like living your best life. I don't want to live my worst life or like a medium life. I want to live like my best life. I don't want to take it too far and become anal, but like I think it's important.
Mom.
Awesome.
Thank you, Eric.
Hi. So health to me is being mentally and physically fit, which would include, of course, the exercise and the nutrition. I have struggled with low thyroid for several years. And there are various symptoms that have flared up due to stress, and I'm currently working on them.
Love it, love it. V is cooking, but I'm still gonna ask him anyway.
Well, okay. So for me, health is not just physical, it's also mental. I kind of realized, like at a young age, every time you think about health, it's always like, it's what you eat. It's like the exercises you do, but no one really stressed to me, like, it's also mental. It's going to affect how your body is, how your body reacts to everything in life. And so for me, like, for health is also physical and mental.
My man Jay, thank you, V. That was a great answer.
So health, I think it's just like the interplay of organs, and also the piggyback off V is that it is also mental. I think like for me, I take diet as such a big umbrella as to what you watch, what you read, what you put into your body. So health is such a broad word, like it's a word, but it has such a broad meaning to obviously everyone. So I guess I believe it's like subjective. And I think it's like the freedom and the ability to move independently and to perform certain tasks without limitations or within those limitations, and still being able to complete those tasks.
Yeah, some really good answers.
Right.
Oh, man, I got a great.
I'm a mute myself again.
Oh man, Shannon.
Oh, Shannon's in here.
Hello. Oh, your mic.
Mic check, mic
Is
check.
my mic on?
You're on mute.
Okay. I thought I hit unmute first before I hit video, but clearly I didn't know. Okay. I don't know what the question was.
What?
Been
Yeah,
around.
my bad. What does health mean to you?
Oh. I think it's just like all encompassing of like all areas of your life are in like a good balanced state, mentally, emotionally, physically. I think the emotional plays a big part in both mental and physical health. At least for me, I'm more of an emotional person. So like if I'm stressed, definitely like to eat. And I think it just kind of, if your emotional state's not good, then like mentally you're just not checked in. And it kind of just like is a domino effect. So I just kind of think all the three of those need to be in a good place, really, for you to be like in a healthy state of mind and base, physically, mentally, whatever. That's what I'm gonna go with. I feel very put on point there.
That was great.
What do you think,
Yeah.
Terrence?
Thank you. So a lot of you guys have a good idea of what health means to you. So it always gets interesting because we know what health means to us, but we continue to live these lifestyles that are all over the place, and we don't follow any of the shit that we just say.
Mhm.
So it's important that we do find that balance and also remember the root of what we feel as healthy. And remember the key word that I said is balance, because that doesn't mean that you can't have fun and have a life, but it does mean that whatever that root is that you have of what you deem as healthy, you should be doing something in your day-to-day to be achieving what you would call to be healthy. So my next question is going to be, what would you guys consider healthy eating? So I'm just gonna kind of reverse the order a little bit. Let's go, Shannon. We're gonna make these answers a little quicker because I do want to start getting down into the breakdown of some of the topics that I want to speak about. Right now, I'm just getting some perspective and just seeing where people's mind is. So, Shannon, what would you consider healthy eating?
I've been on my little nutritional journey for the last few years. So, I mean, what I've come to learn being healthy eating is just to be balanced. That, you know, for the most part, eat your veggies for sure. You know, for me, it's just like not overeating, eating the right portions, but still like, you know, having your cheeseburger every now and then, to be quite honest. For me, it's just a little different just because I do have allergy, so I do have to be careful with that. But just, I think just overall getting in like the fruits and veggies, but balancing that out with a cookie every now and then.
Excellent. Shannon, I do want you to, I said earlier, anybody that has any health conditions, just list them in the chat because I want to bring up some stuff later on.
Okay.
All right. Jay, healthy eating.
I'm gonna go with Shannon. Balance. I'm gonna agree with that 100%. And then learning to have a healthy relationship with food. I think like how you opened the Zoom call up with, you know, you're hearing carbs are bad for you, sodium, all these things are bad, and some of them has like a stigma to it, and like negative connotation to it. I think that once we become aware of what their purpose is, we're able to look at foods, like Shannon said, we can look at a burger and not feel guilty about having it, or we can make different decisions about like, you know, incorporating it into our diet and stuff like that. So I would say balance, and then having a good relationship with food.
Perfect. All right, Mom.
Sorry, I was just settling inside. It's getting dark outside. So I would say balance. We've used that word a lot. and also portions. So I know sometimes when we tend to be stressed, food seems to give us some comfort. And I also have an issue with that, and I'm trying to make changes.
Eric, good job. Thank you, Mom.
Healthy eating for me, kind of just like avoiding junk food. I eat out a lot, but like if I go to Chipotle, I get like brown rice. And like if I eat eggs earlier in the day, I try not to get chicken later in the day. You know, I try to mix things up. But yeah, it's pretty simple. I don't really cook too much, but I eat out a lot. But I try to eat healthy stuff when I eat out.
That's a good topic to bring up later, actually. How to eat healthy when you're eating out a lot. I just thought of that too. Yeah. Who is next? I believe it is me. I might have messed the order up.
Hey guys, so for me, healthy eating is having like whole nutritious foods, not just like the normal carbs, fats, and like protein, but also like the fruits and veggies part. Yeah.
Perfect. Gil.
Okay, because of my type 2 diabetes, I've learned that I have to have a specialized diet for me. So I avoid all processed carbs. And actually, I've come to learn that a type 2 diabetes diet is really just very good natural raw foods, a lot of fruit, well, not a lot of fruits, mostly vegetables. But I try to eat, if I do eat fruits, they're very low in natural sugar. And that's what's helped me to improve over the years. So I focus on staying away from processed foods, and especially processed carbs like white carbs and things like that.
And Miss Deborah. Thank you, Gil.
Something that I struggle with on a regular basis. So, but I think it's, or I know to be those foods that are nutritious. But I kind of think you have to incorporate foods that you like into it. So just an understanding and the balance, like most people were saying, I think it's a good balance between nutrition and enjoying foods that you like sometimes as well.
Excellent. All right, so now we are going to get into some of the science. Ms. Deborah, can you mute your, and Mom, can you mute yours too? There you go. All right, so now I want to get into some of the breakdown of what a lot of this means. So we got a good amount of perspectives here. We got to gauge what people deem as healthy, what you deem as healthy eating, but once you start understanding what a lot of this does to your body, what a lot of this is, what the science is of a lot of it, you will start to understand how to maneuver a little more in your day-to-day. So the very, very, very first thing that I wanted to get across was macros. We all hear about it. Some of us know what it is. Some of us are like, what the hell are you talking about? So what a macro is are your big three nutrients. It's going to be your carbohydrates, which we're all afraid of, our proteins, and our fats. So I am going to let my squad take over and break down what each one of those are and why they are important to the human body.
Okay. I think I can start that off. I think V had touched on it earlier about the three main components of macronutrients. And like you said, carbohydrates, protein, and fat. Let me know if I'm speaking too low. So carbohydrates, I'll start off with that one. It's the biggest one. So it's our body's main source of energy and it's essential for brain function. Some of the diets that we'll be speaking on later A lot of people, misconceptualize because they think that they need to eliminate a certain food group completely in order to stay healthy. And then protein is used to build and repair damaged tissues. So when we're working out and things like that, it's very important. And it's also important for our overall health. So not only our muscles, but our hair, skin, and nails, as well as our bone growth. Then fat is, in a sense, our energy reserve. It helps promote adequate hormone function and helps the body absorb different vitamins and minerals.
Right. And just to build on that, all of those 3 macronutrients do have subsections within them. For example, fats, you have the lipids, you have cholesterol, you have triglycerides. So they all also play different functions. It's really just about understanding what each roles are to figure out what's best for you when looking at a holistic approach to your optimal diet. Yeah.
All right, so since we're on the topic of protein, fats, carbs, pretty much our macros, can y'all get into a little more of the mindset of why low carb diets might be popular or why that might deemed as healthy? And it's funny because you'll have where people's like do low carb diets, and then you'll have other ones where it's like, all right, well, we're gonna go all vegetarian diet, which is primarily gonna be carbs and low on protein. So can we speak about where some of these fad diets come into play and to the mindset of, oh, this style is healthy, maybe over another style of eating?
Yeah. So I can start off on this one if you'd like. So speaking specifically on the low carb diet in particular, a lot of that stems from the idea that carbohydrates are the main energy source for the body, whereas fats are considered energy reserves. So when you restrict your carbohydrates, your energy intake is dropped. Therefore, your need to utilize energy reserves is higher. So that's kind of where the concept comes into play. And in theory, that works perfectly. In theory, that works well. But what it doesn't take into account is the fact that your body's main goal in everything you do, your body's main goal is to be comfortable, is to basically keep you alive. So it wants to hold on to those energy stores. And it's going to find other ways to make up for that energy that you're not getting in because you're restricting carbs without having to burn all of those energy stores. And that's low carb specifically. Then you have other fad diets like, fat-free diets, which basically is just another way to say low calorie diets, being that fat are the most calorically dense of the macronutrients. You have, the caveman diet, which is just trying to promote people eating healthy whole foods, intermittent fasting, just shortening that time period in which people can eat in a hope that restricts their total intake. So all these fad diets are based on more theory rather than application.
You got any extra input on that, Idalise?
Yeah, so I wanted to make a point as to why people think that the low carb would be, easier to lose weight on that, because when you eat, a higher intake of protein and fat, you're actually filling yourself up more, so you're staying fuller for longer periods throughout the day. So we can go into like the actual quantity of gram per calorie, right? And that's what you want to touch on, like what is a calorie? So a calorie is just the simple definition is a unit of energy. So that's how we want you to think of it today. So for carbohydrates and protein, 1 gram of each of those equals 4 calories, whereas fat, 1 gram equals 9 calories. So when that plays into effect is when we're actually eating a lot of protein, a lot of fat will stay fuller, like longer period of time, whereas carbohydrates, as Sharif was saying, we're constantly utilizing that as energy. So when we're working out, that's the first thing that we're going to be burning off, and it takes longer for us to tap into that energy reserve because our body is trying to hold on to that to remain at homeostasis or equilibrium. So that's our body's like comfort zone.
And I mean, if you really want to get into like the science about it, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody here, either one-on-one or on the side, as to why the whole satiety thing comes into play. That really has to do with the timing at which your body is able to break down each one of these macronutrients. We can get more into that one-on-one anytime you'd like. Just I don't want to derail too much from the macro and the calories.
No, absolutely, yeah. We just want to get like a it's like a broad view on some things like that. So, which aren't macros right now. I just want to go a little off. Let's talk a little bit about sodium and sugar, because those are the other two ones that you hear a lot about. Too much sodium is bad for you, right? But we often don't hear about the necessities of sodium for the body. So if any of you guys want to break down what's the real importance of sodium and where does this bad rep come of and how do we get too much of it too, if we gotta go on that topic. But can you just break down the purpose of sodium in the body and why it is necessary and that we shouldn't just cut it completely out of our diet?
So, I mean, I was just talking to sodium about you guys, so I guess I'll take sodium if you want to take sugar. Basically, sodium is one of the main minerals utilized by our body for transport in and out of the cell. What I mean by this is for things to enter the cell, they need to go through specialized channels. And these are 50% within your body, sodium and potassium pumps. So sodium's main function is opening these pumps and allowing macronutrients like carbs, fats, and proteins to enter the cell where they can be used. So without sodium, one, your body struggles to get those macronutrients in within it, and two, it has to utilize more energy to do ultimately what it would be doing with the sodium. So it really does play a pivotal part in just how your body responds to food. I heard sodium is worse in processed foods, especially snack foods. What is your view? Primarily talking about just junk foods and sodium intake. Generally speaking, it's because they are so sodium dense. So many of them are preserved or meant to last very long on a shelf. So what ends up happening is, in order to do that, the sodium, the quantity of sodium is increased significantly, like drastically so, compared to what we're most used to in whole foods. Can lead to an issue of having too much salt in the bloodstream. Too much of anything is an issue, but too much of salt tends to lead to dehydration. It tends to lead to, potential kidney issues, and it's just an overall issue throughout the bloodstream and many of your organs. But the problem is when you're having too much of this processed food, too much of this sodium-rich food or sodium-dense food, that we tend to see high levels of sodium. Or if you're somebody that has a dietary restriction or a potential, pre-existing condition in which they need to keep a low sodium content, whether it be something like a gastric bypass that was brand new, put in where you want to manage the amount of sodium and acid that are entering the stream, or something else, that's where we tend to see these issues with high sodium. But the average person, if you're just eating whole foods, odds are your sodium level is more than fine.
Good. I would like y'all to touch into sugar. That is another big one.
Give that one to you.
So sugar, our body is going to treat all carbohydrates and a majority of our food sources, and it's going to convert it into glucose later on, which, yes, is essential for our brain function and our body's main source of energy, but our body's also going to react to different forms of carbohydrates. So we can talk about simple and complex carbs. And the difference between those are like heavily processed versus, whole fruits and vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, things like that. So I think Gil had touched on this earlier about staying away from white carbs, right? So he was talking about more like pasta, white breads, and things like that. So, and then V touched on, whole food sources. So getting that from fruits and vegetables. And yeah, Terrence, do you want to add anything else to that?
I'm sorry, I was just updating the chat. No, you covered that pretty good for me. I am letting you guys lead it. So Sharif, if you want to do anything about sugar, go right ahead.
So just continuing to branch off that, like I had mentioned earlier, I do suffer from type 1 diabetes, so sugars are kind of like right in my wheelbarrow. Um, it's interesting that you would mention the difference between simple and complex sugars, because that is actually very prevalent in what the sugar is doing to your system. And in particular, looking from a diabetic standpoint, it has a lot to do with glycemic index and how your sugar fluctuates as a result of that. So in focusing in on getting those complex carbs, not only does it take your body longer to fully process them, so it's a gradual release of sugar into the bloodstream that can be well accommodated by most medications, such as metformin or subcutaneous insulin injections, but it is a much more useful form of carbohydrates for your body to utilize, just because it's small and incremental dosages as opposed to one big hit that will mostly get stored as fat and underutilized. Yeah.
Okay. I think I have a quick question for Gil. He had mentioned his HbA1c, and I just wanted to know if he actually knew what that meant. So I want people to understand the importance of, yes, their doctors are telling them, the good news that you're lowering these numbers, but do you know what these numbers mean specifically to you?
I thought it, from what I understood, it's like an average number of what your sugar levels are in your bloodstream. Most I knew is like when you do the test, it kind of takes like a 3-month average maybe of what you're intaking and your blood levels. That's what I know about it.
Yeah, that's perfect. So it's your glycosylated hemoglobin. It takes the average of your blood glucose levels from the past 3 months. I just wanted to make sure that you understood the difference between just a regular, glucose test for the day versus the 3 months. So,
yeah, and it's like a motivating factor, because my meter does let me see like my month average of all the blood levels that I've tested. So I'm always trying to lower that monthly average.
Good.
And it almost becomes like a little bit of a challenge for yourself. Just trying to stay on top of it, trying to progressively be better and better. Yeah, and I think this is a really good segue. Actually, never mind. There's a question. I have a question with sugars. I know there are the two, but is there one you want to avoid more than others? So there are actually a number of different sugars beyond just the two. There are monosaccharides, polysaccharides, disaccharides, all of which get converted down to glucose. When we refer to processed sugars, generally that's the one we're talking about avoiding. Reason being is because it's processed down to the point where it is extremely simple, in the sense that once it enters your bloodstream, your body is able to metastasize it right away and almost immediately drop it into the bloodstream in high quantities. So a lot of that sugar isn't able to be utilized by your body effectively in those high quantities all at once. So it'll get stored away in fat more readily than, say, a complex carbohydrate would be. So generally speaking, when we're talking about sugars to avoid, we're referring to processed sugars, or another way of saying it is simple, non-complex sugars.
Sharif, while you're on that point, I'm sorry, can you even tell people what are some sources of complex carbohydrates and what are some sources of simple carbohydrates? Because even every time we think of sugars, we usually go to just fine white sugar, or we're thinking processed cakes and sweets like that. But
yeah, absolutely.
Any
So
carbohydrate is going to break down into a sugar. So just break down
exactly. So that's an interesting point that you would also made. I don't want you to think of sugars as just sweets. Sugars encompasses any carbohydrates and many, if all not all, starches. So that means your pastas are considered sugar. Your rices, your sweet potatoes, and everything in between. Anything that is a carb ultimately gets converted into a sugar. Now, you want to avoid what we consider processed sugars. So things like white rice and, enriched white pasta will be broken down by your body a lot quicker than their brown or whole grain counterparts. Things along the lines of honey or juices are typically a big source of simple sugars due to their high concentration of fructose, depending on what kind of juices they are. As a diabetic, that may or may not be an issue, but fructose is, in particular, is one of those interesting ones because it's kind of in the middle ground. So your honeys, your syrups, things like that are on the lower ground of things, whereas your more complex carbs are going to be your sweet potatoes, your brown rice, your oatmeals are considered a complex carb, your whole grain breads, anything that has been, so to speak, less processed will, generally speaking, be a higher complex carb.
And complex carbs are going to break down slower in the body than a simple carb would.
Yes.
Perfect.
Anything
All right.
to add?
Idalise, you have anything to add from there, or I can move on?
I think that's a good segue to talk about. I think you wanted to mention about shopping in stores. So we were going to talk about, like nutritional bars, so protein bars, right? So people are like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm getting my protein, but they forget to notice that it's a majority of carbs. So you might just have, about 30 grams of carbs when you're only having 7 to 11 grams of protein. And you think that, you're only getting one macronutrient out of it, but it's loaded with different sugars. And then we want to talk about like sugar-free foods and things like that. So I think that's a good segue into that.
I'll jump right into it.
Yeah.
Like,
go ahead.
Just playing off what you just said. I mean, that's one of those really important things that a lot of people don't really mention when getting into nutrition, is you can't take what a packaging says for fact. You've got to look at the nutrition label. Just because something says protein filled does not mean it has your 38 grams of protein. It might have some protein, but odds are it's loaded in sugars and carbs, especially in the case of these protein snacks. Another big one is sugar-free. Sugar-free does not always mean carb-friendly, keto, or even in the slightest useful in that regard of being sugar-free. It may mean void of added sugars, but that doesn't take into account all of the natural sugars within it.
Right.
Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, you got the killing, man. All right. So, speaking of how to shop, right? So, grocery stores are set up, unless you're in a farmer's market, but grocery stores are set up a certain way for a reason. So let's talk about how grocery stores are set up. If you guys, I want Idalise to actually get into this one.
Okay.
Speaking of why the perimeter is set up the way it is and what's in the middle of a grocery store, just so someone who's looking to, let's say, go grocery shopping, right? And let's say I don't know much about nutrition. What are some ways that you would try to teach somebody how to maneuver through a grocery store to get them to shop for the right things?
Okay, so I would stick mainly to the outskirts of the grocery store, which is where you're getting your produce and everything like that. And then as you notice, as you get to, the center of the store, that's when you get to all the chips, you get to the crackers and your condiments and everything like that. So you're getting, your dairy, you're getting your eggs, and you're getting your meats and produce on the outskirts. So I would stick to, like the purest form of food and whole sources there. And then just go in the middle of the store for your select few things that you need. So condiments and things like that, and the miscellaneous aspects that you need for cooking. But yeah, I think that would be my best advice. I think it's interesting to look at, the layout of the store in that way, because people usually go to the store sometimes a few times a week, and they're like, okay, well, I just need certain things from the store. And then you end up coming out with a bunch of things that you don't need, or you get sidetracked because you're in that aisle already, specifically looking for something. And you're like, you know what, I could actually use some ice cream. I could use this. And then you just start playing this maze game where you're going in and out of the aisles, and it's supposed to be like that. You're supposed to get lost in there.
Anything to add to that, Sharif?
I mean, I think she just made a great point too, is how easy it is for us to get lost in the grocery store and pick up things we ultimately didn't even want to get to begin with. My best advice when it comes to that, make a list, know exactly where you're going before you go, and just stick to the route. The more you venture, the more likely you are to pick up things that you don't really need.
Absolutely. All right, so let's change gears a tad bit. So we talked about a little bit of the fad dieting. So that pretty much touched on the misconceptions of some of our dieting and stuff. Let's speak on overeating and undereating and how that can affect your metabolism. Sharif, let's start us off with that one, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So overeating is what most people are familiar with, at least. It is where you're eating too much for your body to process in its natural metabolic rate, and generally speaking leads to weight gain as a result. That's kind of what we're most used to. It's what we see from, a societal diet perspective is, oh, you're eating too much, that's why you're gaining weight. So that's kind of an understood one. What's coming up more and more in today's age is actually this concept of undereating. And for those of you that have gotten a chance to speak to me already, I speak about this pretty often, so I'll try to be brief. But basically what this is you have the emergence of very restrictive diets, usually fad diets, becoming very popular, in which people are eating well below their basic metabolic rate. And as a result, not only are they damaging their body's natural ability to metabolize food due to underusage and inactivity, but leading to higher risks of other physical ailments or genetic conditioning. So we see this a lot where somebody will come in to a nutritionist's office and say, well, I've been eating 1,200 calories for the last 4 months. I'm not losing weight anymore. What am I doing wrong? Old school thinking of nutrition will tell you, oh, well, you have to cut calories again. When you're at 1,200, there's not much other space to cut in most cases. But now we have this concept of undereating, in which we've kind of shifted that dynamic from just cutting calories to strengthening the metabolism so that it can accommodate for higher amounts of food, higher amounts of calories, while still functioning at an effective rate. Yeah.
So, Idalise, I want you to talk about some of the sneaky ways that people can overeat that they don't even realize.
Okay, so I think Eric had touched on this about him, eating out a lot. So I think that a lot of calories are hidden in foods that we get from other sources in our house. We talked about protein bars and things like that is usually loaded with calories, and people think it's just a snack. Actually, some of these protein bars should be a meal replacement because they're so heavy in calories. Or you take things such as maybe a smoothie bowl or a smoothie outside of your house that you don't know exactly what ingredients are in there. So it could be loaded with, 2 bananas instead of 1 that you would make at home. It could be loaded with oatmeal, protein powder, and things like that, where yes, it's filling you up, but you're taking it as a snack where it should have been a meal. And I think the best bet to, counteract that is actually make the foods that you're craving or you enjoy, make that at home, make a healthier version so you know exactly what you're putting into it. And you can look at those nutrition labels and be like, listen, what I made today is only 500 calories if you're that into numbers.
And just to hit on another point there, be wary of your condiments,
Mm-hmm.
your sauces, your ketchups, your mustards, depending on what they are, tend to be super caloric dense. for the most part. Your barbecue sauce is big.
That's a
Any
big one.
glazes or marinades. Yep.
Mhm.
And you might think I'm only having this much, but this much adds up over the course of a week. Yeah.
We also talked about, what was it, empty calories. So even things like drinks. So if you're having maybe sweet tea or you're having soda, and these are, you look and you're like, oh, it's only 100 calories, it's 0 sugar, 0 calorie drink, but it's still spiking your blood sugar because it has so much sugar in it. So you're actually counteracting what you're trying to do. You're trying to opt for the better option, but it's also still spiking that blood glucose number, or it's just adding, maybe 300 calories a day to what you're used to eating already. So you're only adding that on top of what you're already consuming through food.
Yeah. I saw that somebody wanted to speak on their overeating experience.
Yeah, it's me, Gil.
Yep, Gil.
Yeah, I wanted to give you my experience, especially as you guys have been training on nutrition, and I don't know your experience with being overweight. At my worst part of my life, when I was overweight, when you're at that level, what you eat feels natural to you. It doesn't feel like you're overeating. It feels like that's exactly what my body needs. And in a way, I'm sure you guys might have learned about the body. If your body gets used to a certain level, it actually will think this is normal, but it's not. But you can see it's not normal because of the weight that you're gaining. But emotionally and even sometimes physically, it feels normal. So it's a long road to really focus on understanding what normal eating even feels like. So I think I've finally reached a level where I can tell, my body can actually tell me when I overeat. At my worst, the bloating actually felt comfortable. It felt soothing. Something about overeating, when you feel you have a certain control over your life because you're the one choosing all that food. And it brings you a certain level of comfort. And that's why people have such a hard time losing weight, because there is a physical and an emotional connection to overeating. But if we do those things you guys are saying, in time you'll start to actually feel when you overeat, and then it'll feel bad, and that'll motivate you not to do that.
Right. I think I have something to add on that too, that I speak to my mom a lot. So Gil's actually my mom's boyfriend, and I know him, but I would say a lot of people misconceptualize as well that people who are small or people who don't look overweight can't have those same experiences. So I would say when I go through, times of stress and things like that, I also overeat, but maybe you don't see it as being unhealthy. You're just like, oh, she's eating more than she usually does. But anybody can overeat. Anybody can have an unhealthy coping mechanism to stress, anxiety, depression, and we'll get into mental health a little bit later. But I think that it's important to also be aware of your hunger cues, because I understand what you mean about that bloating becoming, comfortable for you, and then you don't really know when to stop. You're enjoying your food because of the hormones that it's releasing in your brain when you actually eat those foods. And it kind of soothes you. So it becomes, that's why we use the term comfort food, right? Because it provides us a sense of relief from that, stress or what we're trying to really hide from. So I think that when we talk about cravings, yes, it's also telling us that we're lacking something. But when we get to the point of where we're eating to the point of being satisfied, so that's satiation, right? Then we're talking about eating to the point where you're full, and then you're exceeding that. So it's like you're not only eating to fuel your body, but you're trying to eat to fuel something else. So it's like fueling your emotions.
Yeah.
Look like you got something to add to that, Sharif.
No, I'm just kind of taking it in. I learn from other people just as much as, like, hopefully they can learn from me. So
Same.
me and Idalise don't exactly have exactly the same like approach to nutrition, which is something I really appreciate because it means that we can talk from different perspectives. Even just her being, you know, a female dealing with different pre-existing conditions and a male dealing with other pre-existing conditions gives us a different perspective to look at nutrition at. So yeah, this is as much for me as it is for you guys.
So for the people who can relate with that, what's that switch that goes off to let you know, like, all right, I need to make that change? Or is it like just going to the doctor and you seeing your numbers? Are you like just looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, things are starting to change when I look at myself? Are you actually getting to a point where like the foods are making you sick? Can you like kind of talk about that light bulb moment that goes off for you? Whoever wants to jump in for that.
You know, it's like I'm listening, but okay.
I guess I can jump in on that. I mean, I've definitely struggled a couple different points in my life with being overweight or gaining weight that I was uncomfortable with. I would say my most recent time, which was probably about, I guess maybe 3 years ago, it was right before I started to train with UT. I knew like I was overweight and like I knew like I was fat, but like Idalise was saying, like she was saying she's small, so when she overeats, people don't think it's necessarily unhealthy. For me, I'm 5'10", and I definitely have a bigger stature. So my friends are like, well, you're not heavy, like you're fine, like you look good, because like they weren't seeing like, oh my God, I'm so sorry what I was seeing. But I knew I needed to make a change. Oh my God, if you don't stop, I'll have to stop. Are you done? Okay. Sorry, my dog's likes to join in. It was for me, I knew I had a problem, and it was a mental fight because I knew about 5 years prior to that, like I was on my game. I was working out 5 to 6 days a week. I was eating healthy. It was just stress that got to me, and I let it all go. And it was, I would see myself in the mirror. I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't happy. I was definitely having some stomach issues and probably some other health issues at the time I didn't know about. And when I went to my first doctor, he was actually more concerned about, I think, my sugars, because he said my sugars were a little bit high. And I was more concerned about my stomach because I was just like, well, I feel sick like all the time after I eat. Like, I don't know, like I feel like a rock, like I don't feel heavy. And he basically put me on the high protein, low carb diet, and was just like, well, just Google the diet. You'll find all the information and go from there. So I found that very unhelpful. So I took another year off of just being unhappy, unhealthy, not feeling good. Still was like wanting the change, but couldn't do it. And it probably wasn't until I saw my new doctor and I saw the scale and I was mortified because I was literally at my heaviest, which I didn't understand how either, because of the health issues I was having. I felt like I should have been much, much thinner. But then with the test results, I got back that I was basically pre-diabetic, and it runs in my family, and she wanted to basically try a diet on me, but essentially it ended up to me being on medication. I was just like, okay, I'm not living this life, like, because my father's diabetic, my grandfather was, and I just see them with the needles, and I'm just like, I'm not living that life. And I think it really took me having an actual health issue that I didn't think I should be having in my early 30s to finally kind of kick my butt to start making the transition. And then that's eventually when I started to see my trainer. He flaked on me, and then that's when my friend introduced me to you. And kind of from there, obviously that was a very long process in the beginning for you and I, but by the end of that year of being with you, I went to see a nutritionist. And I think it was a very slow journey for me this time, instead of me just kind of jumping in and like starting maybe like one of those like Beachbody diets, or like kind of just like whatever kind of thing, like things, because I did that the last time, which obviously didn't last because I put all the weight back on. But I think it was like a slower journey for me this time, but I think this time it's gonna like withstand, and it's actually becoming more of a lifestyle for me. I still have my battles, which Sharif and you know, but it definitely took for me this time for me to look at the scale, to have medical like health issues, and then to actually put me on medicine, because I hate being on medicine. I don't like to take pills if I don't think it's necessary. And I was scared. I was really scared of what was to come if things got worse, because then it was like, you have high cholesterol, you have this, and I was just kind of like, I am 34 years old and this should not be happening to me right now.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, I wanted to take my life back before I lost it, because I really saw, I just knew if I didn't, I was going to be in for like a really bad ride, I think, in the next, like, by the time I am now, like, so that's 3 years ago, I figured like I would be in a lot worse of a state if I didn't, like, I needed that wake up call because I couldn't do it myself. I was mad that I knew what I knew how to, I even told you, I know what I need to do. I just can't get myself to do it.
Right.
So it was a big mental battle. It's like, I know what to do. I know how I need to eat. I know I need to work out, but for whatever reason, I couldn't make that leap until that one doctor's visit. And then I was like, oh, okay. So I did it, but it took a while, but it definitely took me being at my heaviest that I've ever been in my entire life, and me getting back that I was basically on the journey to become a diabetic, that I was just like, to make the change. But yeah. Sorry, that was probably a little long-winded.
No, it's okay. Can I
Anybody
add
else?
something onto that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so that kind of transitions to, yes, overeating, but also undereating, right? So when we talk about nutrition, we're talking about emotional eating and going over a certain amount of calories, right? So we're eating in excess to battle with like our mental health and everything. So then we feel so heavy to the point where we don't feel like working out, right? So we see that nutrition and exercise go hand in hand for our physical and mental health. And that goes for the same thing with undereating as well. So you're not feeling your body enough to have the energy to work out. So it's like these things are both connected, and that's what we're trying to bridge today, is for you guys to see the importance of fueling one and fueling the other, so that way you can get the best of both worlds.
So undereating, I like that you brought that up. Brittany, I do want to speak about you dealing with kidney disease. And I know that limits a lot of the nutrients that you can take in, and even like on the caloric side. So if you don't mind just kind of talking a little bit about your experience dealing with that and how the undereating actually affected you for so long.
So yeah, I battle kidney disease. The diet is actually really, it's terrible, honestly. But in this past time I was in the hospital this past week, they actually had my diet set for that, and the limitations were just like terrible. I can only get, like, say if I ordered like a chicken breast, and then they'll give me a little piece of chicken breast and I'll have a side of vegetables, but no carbs. Like if I ask for like rice, they wouldn't give me rice with it. They'll say, oh, you're going over your limit, because I think I had like the sodium limit was like 2 grams. Potassium limit was only like 2,000 grams for the day. So from morning to like the dinner time, I had to watch what I ordered and watch what I ate. And so it was pretty rough at the hospital as far as them giving me food and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as like, I definitely undereat for sure myself. As far as trying to take calories, it's really rough for me.
What's some of the what's some of the things that you have to limit on a daily basis that other people would actually need a lot of in their diet? You can speak about that a little.
Potassium, mainly, like, you definitely have to eat a lot of greens, but I can't eat a lot of greens. Bananas, oranges, there's all types of fruit. As far as like potatoes, no potatoes. Basically, I can have I can have a little bit of rice. As far as my vegetables, I can do green beans, I can do carrots, corn, and fruit is like berries, like blueberries, strawberries, no melons, no any type of like mangoes, nothing like that. So it's a lot that goes into it. No asparagus. It's like they have like a whole list for me ranging from high to low, as far as potassium, phosphorus, sodium, calcium, all that in between. But it's a lot.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, Brittany, can you mute yours real quick? And there we go. Yeah, it was always interesting speaking with Brittany about, you know, her style of dieting, because I'm gonna let Sharif and Idalise go into more detail, like about the importance of potassium and phosphorus and calcium and what that does to the body. But for someone who's battling kidney disease, you literally have to limit all of that. And these all play extreme pivotal roles into literally maintenance of the human body. So when we're talking about the whole under-eating thing, Brittany's diet is like that 1,000, 1,200 calorie diet, to where the average person, you really don't want to break under 1,500. You know, if you're just kind of looking at the average human body. So Sharif or Idalise, whichever one of you guys want to jump in, can you even just speak about the importance of potassium, calcium, why we need that in our body? And it just gives a little more perspective of someone who's dealing with those issues of how they have to limit that and how they even lack it in their diet.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is like the perfect segue into micronutrients.
Mm-hmm.
I know we hit on macronutrients. Those are the big three that everybody wants to talk about: proteins, fats, and carbs. But there are also dozens of micronutrients that all do a variety of different things for your body that most people don't even think about. It goes well beyond just your vitamin A, you know, B, C, right? It goes into your minerals. It goes into basically everything, from your phosphorus to your sodium and everything in between. And in particular, when it comes to Brittany's case, unfortunately, most of these micronutrients do get filtered through the kidney. So it makes sense from a physiological standpoint as to why somebody with damaged kidneys or even dealing with kidney disease would need to be careful about how much the kidney is processing at a time. And then I think this is a perfect segue for Idalise to get into like micronutrients. Yeah.
Okay. So talking about the difference between vitamins and minerals, which are, you know, a subset of micronutrients. So our vitamins act as antioxidants, which help us fight certain diseases, which is important to talk about because of the poll that we asked you all to mention in the chat. Then we have minerals, which are important for our bodily growth and development. So it's important for us to get these raw food sources in the form of fruits and vegetables, because the nutritional content within them can also be affected by cooking, how we store them, and you know, processed foods. So like we said, we do focus on macronutrients, but there should be a larger focus as well as on micronutrients and getting them from whole foods and raw food sources. Terrence, you're muted.
My bad.
You had kind of hit on like the effect cooking can have on that, which I think once again is just the next topic that makes sense for us to get into. Is really that cooking, you know, because we've talked about what foods we should be eating. We've talked about, you know, our macros. We've talked about our calories, what food does. Great. Now let's get into like the application of things, the cooking, right? Your portion and your cooking are, I think, the two biggest application factors that come into play after you've decided on what foods you're eating. And there are a number of different approaches, you know, whether it be you're baked, you're grilled, you're sauteed, you're deep fried. Each one has a different impact on your food's total calories, as well as, say, the protein concentration or denaturing that your food goes through. So you hear things like you want to avoid deep fried. Reason being is because it's a great way to spike the fat content in any food. And I don't mean just spike like slightly. I mean pretty substantially. So you take something that's inherently healthy, like chicken, you deep fry it. Now you've added 300 to 400 calories in just fat alone. So that's why you'll hear things like avoid deep fried foods. On the other end, you have things like sauteed, which, you know, does utilize olive oil, it does utilize fat or whatever fat you want to use, but it's still a very effective way of cooking most foods. Looking at it from more of a culinary perspective now than a diet perspective for a second, is a great way to go about cooking your food. Really enhances the flavor. It get a nice roast without importing too many additional calories on it. And then you even got to the further extreme, right? Your baked food, where you're not adding really any additional fats. You're not using those fats to prime the food for cooking or to transfer heat. So while it does lead to slightly less flavorful food in some cases, though I can make that argument too, believe me, it does restrict those slight hidden calories that you would get from cooking. Want to jump in?
I was gonna ask you. Oh wait, somebody.
No, do you think?
Oh, I was gonna ask you. So since you do the meal prep service, how do you kind of turn what people enjoy into like a healthier aspect? So people who may not know how to cook for themselves and opt to eat out a lot, how do you suggest they make those healthy decisions in things like maybe burgers and opting for not having it on a bun and asking for maybe lettuce or something like that?
So just to real quick hit on something somebody just typed in the chat, what I think on air fryers. Air fryers are cool, man. I can't lie. They're a great show of like technological advancements we've made in terms of cooking. I mean, if you like the consistency of fried foods, but you don't want the added fats, air fryers are great. Impart a really crispy, dry skin to most things you're cooking, while effectively cooking them through. I love air fryers. Are they for everybody? No. Could you do something similar with saute? Yes, it would add some fats in that case, but you could still kind of get the same result. Shallow frying is a thing. Braising, broiling, which isn't so popular, but yeah. So air fryers are definitely cool, and they are a great way to restrict those fats, unless you're going ahead and drizzling everything in oil before you dump it in the air fryer, in which case, why are you using an air fryer if you're going to soak it in oil anyway? Yeah, but to go back to what you were saying, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked easily. Yeah, so I do run a meal prep service. Just a little bit of background on that. I pretty much offer meals on a weekly basis to different people. And I come from a culinary background, so I was a chef first before getting into nutrition and dietetics. So for me, that kind of also is my thought process, in which I'll take what I want to cook, right? Whatever it be. I want it to taste good. That's always a plus. And then I'll use my knowledge of nutrition to flip a recipe. So take it from its traditional sense to adding more health conscious choices into it and more health beneficial choices into it. For example, you talked about like excluding the bun from your burgers. Yeah, absolutely. Like lettuce buns are great. Are they necessary? No, not if you don't want to. Pita pockets are even a viable substitute to a fully dense burger bun that are usually high in fats. Pita pockets are relatively low in fats. So there are ways that I choose to be a little inventive with my knowledge of nutrition, but it all stems from what do I want to accomplish for a dish. If I set out to make a great lasagna, great. I'm going to make lasagna because lasagna tastes great, and my lasagna is going to taste great. I can guarantee that. But where is it acceptable for me to make substitutes where it is more health conscious? And that comes into like we talked about control, right? So versus eating out what you're creating on the inside. So all of my meals, I make everything by hand. It gives me full control over what I'm putting into everything. And when I say everything, I mean handmade pasta, handmade wraps, handmade burger buns, bread. Everything I do is by hand so that I know exactly what goes into it every time. Yeah. So that's kind of my approach. And you can do it the exact backwards way. You know you want to eat healthy? All right. Well, you lay out exactly what you want to accomplish. I want to eat this many carbs in this form for this reason. What can I do with that that's going to taste good? You can flip it. For me, it just always made more sense to start with tasting good and flipping from there.
Okay, I like that approach. You also mentioned something earlier about why cravings can be necessary. So yes, cravings indicate that we're, getting a lack of nutrients, but why did you touch on earlier that they're necessary? Like, what are they trying to tell us?
So cravings, hunger pangs, your stomach rumbling, every one of those are physiological responses to your body sending out hunger signals, right? Now, there's a couple different reasons why your body is sending out hunger signals, but nonetheless, your body is trying to communicate to you that something is going on, that is demanding something. So in just pushing those things aside and pushing your hunger pangs or your cravings aside, yes, it might work in the short term, but unless you're addressing why you're having those cravings or those hunger pangs or whatever it may be, you're not really fixing the issue. So sometimes it's more beneficial to give into your cravings just for the simple sake of accommodating what it is causing the cravings, so that you can address it more efficiently throughout your day. For example, some people's cravings are due to habits that they've formed through lifestyle. Other people's cravings are your body telling you, hey, I am lacking this. So it's really important to listen to your body. And I'm not the type to tell you not to give into your cravings, but be mindful of what giving into those cravings do and where you need it to accommodate for the rest of your day.
Right.
That was the best breakdown I've ever heard of cravings. I've never heard that before. I was too. Oh, great. All right, Annalise, micronutrients, that is your topic. I want you to speak about your juices, and I want you to highlight a lot of the micronutrient breakdown and the reason for a lot of the concoctions that you put together.
Okay, good question. All right, so mainly the benefits of juicing that I put together to talk about tonight. Terrence, don't you? As he drinks a mango pineapple.
And ginger.
It's not really for the nutritional benefit. That's just something that tastes good for him because he was just opting out of the veggies. So my main thing, I can start off by telling you why I started juicing myself. There he goes with the meal prep. So as I touched on before with like the overeating, I was going through a stressful time and I noticed how much weight I was putting on. Maybe it wouldn't have been obvious to, other people's eyes, but for me, I just didn't feel comfortable. And I was like, well, what can I do to change? Like, I already know that eating tastes good. I already know that I'm enjoying my food. I didn't really want to lessen that. I got to the point where eating over, my natural amount, was feeling fitting to me. So, I was getting compliments, oh, like you look good, whatever, at this weight. And that makes you feel good, but then when it gets to the point where you don't feel comfortable with yourself, and that's when it becomes an issue. So for me, I had to take it into my own hands. And I was like, all right, well, what can I do? I already eat healthy. I was vegan for 3 years. I'm eating healthy. I'm not going out. There's so many restrictions that you can put on yourself. But when you resort to so many different options, you're like, well, what else can I do? I work out. I do this. I eat healthy. But for me, I'm like, well, I need to take it a step further. I need to kind of dial back, not necessarily change the way I'm eating, but maybe just focus on getting back in tune with my hunger cues. So before I started selling my juices, I just wanted to, I'm never going to I guess promote something that I didn't do myself first. So for me, it was, all right, get back in tune with like the awareness of what you're eating. So I did a 5-day juice cleanse with Gil and my mom, which are both on here, and they can like touch on their experiences as well. And I did this back in February, I think. And I just was like, all right, let's try it out. You know, I had just gotten a juicer. It was an investment for myself. And I just started looking up different things. So I made beet juices, I made green juices, and I would do about 2 to 3 vegetables per fruit that I was using in my juice. So it's not supposed to be a smoothie. The difference between a smoothie and a juice is that smoothies, you're eating and consuming the entirety of the fruit or vegetable that you're putting in it. So it's higher in calories, you're getting the fiber in there, but the juice, you're extracting the vitamins and minerals and like the micronutrients from it, and you're keeping it in its like rawest form, right? So for me, a lot of the time where I was feeling hungry, I was actually thirsty. So for me, that was really important to know that I was already overeating for a certain amount of time, and how can I, you know, implement something in my diet where it's light, but I'm still, you know, satiated. I'm still feeling okay. I still have energy throughout the day. So for me, juicing was that. And the main benefits that I got from that was reduce inflammation, improving my digestive issues with IBS, regulating my pH balance, which is something that people don't really hear about as well. So that reduces the acidity like in your blood. It aids in muscle recovery and decreases like cortisol levels, which are your stress hormone. And then like the main topic of what we're talking about is the emphasis on micronutrients. So like the antioxidants, which help us prevent and treat different chronic diseases and things like that.
Great breakdown. So I know we've been on here a little longer than I expected to, and I don't want to hold everybody up all night, but I'll finish with this last question for Idalise and Sharif.
Okay.
And even if I have a little input, I'll go on there. So with everything that we spoke about today, right, which is a little bit of an information overload, and like I said, I'm going to record it and I'm going to send it out tomorrow so you guys can look a little deeper into, well, just kind of review some of the things that we spoke about. If I'm trying to be more health conscious, I'm just getting into this fitness thing, or say I'm not getting into the fitness thing, say I'm literally just trying to clean up how I'm eating. Maybe I've noticed that I'm not feeling well, my gut's feeling a little weird, I might be putting on a little extra weight than I want to. What are just some tips to try to get started on this health journey in a sense of, you know, maybe eating the right meals, how to balance, how to shop, how to structure my day? Like, what are some tips you would give someone to become more health conscious?
I think you can start with that. So for me, I can only speak on personal experience, but I think that you have to be completely raw and honest with yourself, and just take a journal and see what are the things that you're over consuming, or what is your problem area. So really just reflect on, you know, maybe a day or a few days a week of what your daily pattern is. And if there's like a certain food that you tend to go overboard, for me, that's rice. For me, that's, you know, like the processed carbs. Like I already know, okay, I'm trying to make a change, so I'm going to limit that, not exclude it out of my diet. But if you're genuinely honest with yourself, you're going to be like, I should probably opt for something healthier. So maybe something that still provides that benefit, something that's still a carb. I usually opt for quinoa instead of rice, because I know that rice doesn't fill me up, which is why I like overconsume that. So I think it's not about excluding yourself from having that or limiting yourself, but just be completely honest with yourself and be like, okay, well, if your problem area is drinks, you're, you know, intaking too much alcohol, or you're drinking too much soda, then opt for seltzer water or something that gives you that same effect and that same relief. And just do it in a healthier way. Learn how to cook. There are definitely, you know, resources like Pinterest and YouTube to learn how to cook. You can ask people, maybe if it's your mom, your aunt, your grandma, like you can ask people for help as well. You're not alone. Obviously we have about 12 people in here reach out to us, There's a lot of content out there for you to learn yourself, and I think that's also playing into skills that you need later on in life if your thing is to make it a lifestyle, because anything can be, short-lived. So I think if you're really trying to make a change, you want to make that investment in time and effort to, just better.
I mean, I couldn't agree more with her and everything she said. The advice I'd probably give you is keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Figure out what it is you're eating, how much of it you're eating. Like keep the log journal. That's generally where I start with all of my clients to begin with. Is I'll have you keep a log for me, just so I understand what your eating habits are, and then go from there. If your goal is to lose weight and you're not, odds are you're splurging in some areas. I'm not the type to tell you, hey, you're under eating, you're overeating, straight from the word go. So just keep it simple, be honest with yourself, and make decisions based off what your ultimate goal is. Some people don't want to lose weight. That's fine. Just keep it simple and be honest.
I'm going to piggyback off of both of you. The key word is be conscious. Know what's happening. So oftentimes when we're going through our day-to-days, we're eating more than if you're not tracking your food, you're always overeating. I can almost guarantee you, even the people that say they eat once a day or I didn't eat much today, you're overeating. So I look at dieting the same way that I look at like budgeting money. A lot of conversations that I have with friends in a sense of saving money is pay attention to your daily spendings. We all know our car insurance. We all know our mortgage or rent. We know the big bills that we pay for. It's the little stuff like you going to Wawa, or, maybe some people are tracking their gas that they spend, or maybe certain people are paying attention where they're, just picking up little things. Maybe you need matches for the house or candles or something like that. Like these are the spendings that add up. And then next thing you know, you look at your bank account, like where'd all my money go? And you're not paying attention to the little daily spending that you're doing every day because you're just looking at car insurance, health insurance, rent, and cable or something like that. The big ones that everybody has in their budget. So it's the same thing that I look at like with food. Yeah, you're looking at it and you're like, all right, well, I had chicken, or I had this sandwich, or I had this salad, but what's in each of it? Because if you can just say, yeah, I had a salad today, and then it's like, all right, you're looking at it like it's 200 calories, but some salads have 800 calories. They're loaded. What are you doing to it? How much dressing are you putting into it? How much croutons did you put into it? Maybe you did a bunch of craisins, or maybe you added a lot of extra protein than you thought of, and a 200 calorie salad in your brain turned into a 900 calorie salad. And that's way more common than people think it is. Even doing something like going to Quick Check, right? Before they actually gave you the option to see how many calories was on the sub, you're probably like, oh, it's just a little sandwich, about 400 calories. And now you click on the C nutrition panel and the shit says 1100, and you're like, whoa, like that's like half of your day for most people. So it's not necessarily just the food group, it's what makes up the meals that you're doing. Barbecue sauce can add 300 calories to your meal if you're not paying attention to how much portion of it you're putting on. And it's loaded with sugar. So pay attention to the little things that you're doing to every meal. So when people are talking to me like, yeah, I'm not losing weight, the first thing I ask them is, are you paying attention to what you eat? Yeah, I only ate 3 times today. I'm like, all right, well, for the next 3 days, send me a log of everything you ate at the time that you ate it, because not only is the meal important, I'm looking at the gaps in your day of how much you ate. I need to know what your schedule of what you're eating looks like. That just lets me know your relationship with eating, period. Because maybe you might have ate something at 8 o'clock and your next meal was at 4 p.m. and your next meal from that was at 12 a.m. That day's all over the place. That's a lot of red flags to me. that lets me know that you don't really have a structure of how you're eating stuff, and you're just more on a grab and go. Your sleep schedule can be all over the place. Your stress might be all over the place. There's so many things that play a role here. So when you're eating, be conscious of what you're eating, be conscious of the portions that you're eating, be conscious of what you're adding to your food as well. Everything is a domino effect of one another. You know, so a lot of this information that we gave you guys, we broke down what a protein is, we broke down what a carb is, we broke down what a fat is. They have a role in the body. You know, so that doesn't mean to go to the far extreme and neglect all of it. And if you are following a diet, understand that diets are temporary. Nutrition is a lifestyle, but diets are temporary. I've dieted for photo shoots, and the whole process of it was like a month or two, but I wasn't going to sustain that forever. But I also went in with the mindset knowing that this was temporary. So what some people do is they take these fads, or they take these diets, or these they take these diets that they find and like, okay, I'm gonna live this way for the rest of my life. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not gonna do it at all. You think you're gonna do that, and when you get a month and two in it, and then it's like, yeah, I did this and I lost a bunch of weight. I'm like, all right, then why'd you stop? I don't know. Because you can't sustain it. It's impossible. But you went in with the brain that I can do this for a very, very, what's that? Oh, yeah, all right. But you went in with the idea of I can do this for a very, very long time. So if you do want to diet, understand that it's a diet and understand that it's temporary. Most diets are going to last you 4 to, what would you say, 16 weeks, Sharif, ideally, depending on what you're doing?
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, if that, you know. But just make sure that you're going in with the brain that, all right, this is temporary. But if you want to follow a good, healthy, conscious lifestyle forever, understand your macros, understand your micros, understand how to put a meal together. You know, so don't just follow blindly everything that you see. Make sure you understand the process of what you're doing. Make sure you're paying attention to the little stuff. Make sure you're not going crazy gaps of not eating unless you're following, let's say, like a fasting or intermittent style. But that's a whole nother conversation in itself. But my advice would be to someone is understand, yeah, we'll get to you, Mom. Understand what you're putting in your body, how you're putting it in your body, and why you're putting it in your body. And Mom, I'm gonna let you talk about your personal experience. Just saw your message.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for sharing your knowledge. You've offered a lot of great tips, and I know that to keep up with our health, but we also have to be aware of our bodies. Nobody knows our bodies better than ourselves. 10 years ago, I was struggling with weight gain, and I know that nothing had changed about my food. I was exercising, and I gained 30 pounds in 9 months. So I went to see my doctor, and I thought it was probably my thyroid, and maybe I just needed medication to kind of balance that. And it turned out to be that my blood work came back, and it was perfect. So she thought there was no issues with my thyroid, but then when I had my physical done, they found nodules in my thyroid. Make a long story short, it turned out to be malignant tumors. So I had my thyroid removed. And as you all know, thyroid has a lot to do with your metabolism, with concentration, and many other things. So weight is usually an issue for us, but more so when you have an underlying condition. So I thank you guys for the information. I will also be talking to Idalise because I know a lot of the juices that she makes, she does include ingredients that helps with inflammation, possibly with IBS. And I'm looking to see what would be most effective with someone who does not have a thyroid. So be your own advocates. If you feel that there's something that your body is doing that's not normal, go see a physician, because I thought, wow, okay, it's weight gain. Maybe we can blame it in, it's menopause or it's age. So it's a lot harder to lose the weight. If it would not have been that I went at the time that I did, the physician told me that 6 months later it would have been a little bit too late. So I just, tell everybody, be aware of your body and, feel good about yourself. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's perfect. Yeah.
Thank you.
Terrence, your mic.
Oh, man, I keep doing that. We're gonna open the floor to Jay real quick, man. I know you would
Okay.
see something.
Love you, Ida.
Oh,
I think I just wanted to just go ahead and just praise the three of the speakers tonight, Terrence, Idalise, and Sharif. I've always just been just pretty in awe of those trainers and those individuals that can learn the body, which is totally different science than what nutrition is. So to have a personal trainer, to have people that know both, like that's a rare and special individual to be able to break down both of the sciences in a way that doesn't make people feel stupid, and they could relate to you and you get to learn from them. For the ends of it, for the information to be so digestible, without having any experience in nutrition and stuff like that. I mean, I have some background in nutrition, but y'all didn't see me in the dark eating Reese's, so there's no judgment. This is a safe space. So, but I didn't know anything about nutrition, and the reason why I started learning about nutrition was because I got injured a lot during, my fighting career. Didn't have a healthy relationship with food, and that's why it's so important. So, but for Terrence, Idalise, and Sharif to be in the shape that they are, to understand nutrition, I mean, you guys put together something very special. I just wanted to take a second to just praise you guys about that. So appreciate you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out and hearing us talk. We're all very long-winded, so
Oh my
anybody
God.
that's stuck with us so far,
Anybody in the chat that knows me, I go crazy.
This is a short version for us,
Yeah.
So anybody that's with us this far, we can't thank you enough for just taking the time to listen to us, and hopefully you got something out of it. I know we said a lot, we talked about a lot, but if one thing stands out for you, that's what makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. And Terrence, if you don't mind, I think I can close it out with what we're going to be sending everybody, so you don't, add another 30 minutes.
You know what? Let me screen share while you do
There
that.
you go.
Alright.
Because I think one person dropped us already. I don't know who it was, but yeah, it went from 12 to 11. So yeah, once you share the screen. Okay, yeah. So I have something that we'll be sending. I think Terrence right, you have everybody's email and stuff that you can send me. But we always talk about the 80%, which is nutrition, 20% exercise. So I had put together a little something about different meal ideas for breakfast, lunch, dinner, different sides that you can do. Keep scrolling. I think next was a grocery list I had, and it separated it from fruits, veggies, grains, nuts, seeds, superfoods, and ways to cook them, and little tips as well. So then we have your spices, herbs, condiments, and miscellaneous. We keep going. And then I also put together a little breakdown of what we mentioned. So this is just a recap of everything that we talked about today that you can look at on your own time. And then, so we have a little breakdown of the macronutrients versus micronutrients, everything that we said. And then to end it, we have a day in the life of every certain, diet. So we have vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, and meat friendly as well. And then people who need to incorporate more whole foods and raw foods in their diet, how to go about doing that. So there's little tips in there as well. So it's about 12 pages long. Everybody will get a copy of that in their email tomorrow, as well as the video of this recording that Terrence will share with you all as well. So once again, we thank you all for showing support and sticking with us as long as you did. And there will be more coming up in the future because, as you see, we have a lot to talk about. We're open to questions. So definitely give us feedback. We're looking forward to it, and we look forward to having this grow. And thank you all for, being genuine and open with us and sharing your experiences.
That was a great closer.
Thank you.
Don't hesitate to ask questions. If any of you have questions, hey, we're available to answer. Doesn't need to be in one of these sessions. So
Absolutely. I'm gonna post Idalise's and Sharif's email in the email tomorrow. So if you guys do want to speak to them directly or have any questions for them, it's always good to get another perspective outside of mine, and just to get to connect with some other brains that I admire and that I speak highly of. So definitely give them a ring if you need to. The recording is going to come out tomorrow, as Idalise said, and we are sending you guys that printout as well. So look forward to your email tomorrow, and I appreciate everybody for coming out. Sorry for being a little long-winded, but if you knew me, you knew this was going to happen anyway. So appreciate you all. Have a great night, and I will speak to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, thank you guys.
Had a great time.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
likewise.